Captain Marcus Webb had survived 3 years in the Galactic Diplomatic Corps without a single major incident, which made him either extremely competent or extremely lucky. He suspected it was the latter, especially when command assigned him to the Valorian embassy as the human liaison officer. The Valorians were known for their strict protocols, their elaborate social hierarchies, and their tendency to execute diplomats who made cultural missteps. No pressure at all. The embassy on Station Helios 9 was a marvel of architecture, all flowing curves and bioluminescent walls that pulsed with soft purple light. Marcus had been given a brief orientation by Ambassador Talon, a stern Valorian male whose facial tendrils twitched with barely contained disapproval at having a human in his domain. The tour had been rushed, the instructions unclear, and Marcus found himself wandering the maze-like corridors, trying to locate the communications hub where he was supposed to file his first report. He checked his datapad again, frowning at the schematic that made absolutely no sense. The Valorians apparently organized their buildings based on emotional resonance rather than logical grid patterns, which meant the communications hub could be anywhere from Sublevel 3 to the meditation gardens. Marcus turned down another corridor, this one lined with what appeared to be ceremonial armor displays, and tried not to think about how badly this assignment could go wrong. The door at the end of the hall was marked with glyphs he didn't recognize, but the architectural style matched the description Ambassador Talon had given for the communications section. Marcus pressed his palm against the scanner, relieved when it beeped and the door slid open with a whisper of hydraulics. He stepped inside and immediately froze. The room was definitely not the communications hub. It was a private chamber, decorated with flowing silks and aromatic crystals that filled the air with something like cinnamon and starlight. In the center of the room stood a Valorian female, her back to him, completely unclothed, as she stepped into what appeared to be a ceremonial bathing pool. Her skin was pale blue, marked with intricate silver patterns that traced along her spine and shoulders. Her hair, if it could be called that, consisted of dozens of thin tendrils that moved with a life of their own, currently tied back in an elaborate knot. Marcus's brain short-circuited somewhere between recognizing his mistake and trying to form an apology. The princess turned, because of course she was a princess. The silver circlet on her forehead and the 7 ceremonial scars on her left shoulder marked her as royalty. Princess Lyra, if Marcus remembered his briefing correctly, third in line to the Valorian throne and visiting Helios 9 to negotiate a mining contract with the station authority. Her eyes, solid black with pinpricks of gold light, widened in an expression that transcended species. Shock, pure and absolute, flooded across her features. Her facial tendrils went rigid, her skin flushed from pale blue to deep violet, and she made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a hiss. Marcus threw his hands up, covering his eyes like a child playing hide-and-seek. "I am so sorry," he blurted out, his words tumbling over themselves. "Wrong room? Completely wrong room. I was looking for communications, and the door opened, and I didn't mean to intrude." "You," Princess Lyra's voice was sharp enough to cut steel, "are the human liaison?" "Yes, ma'am, your highness." "I mean, your grace." Marcus kept his eyes covered, mentally cycling through every Valorian title he'd memorized. "I take full responsibility for this breach of protocol. I will submit myself for whatever punishment is deemed appropriate." There was a long, terrible silence. Marcus could hear the gentle splash of water, the hum of the environmental systems, and his own heartbeat pounding in his ears like a war drum. He was going to be executed or imprisoned or worse, sent back to Earth in disgrace, where his mother would never let him hear the end of it. "You may lower your hands," the princess said finally, her tone still icy but no longer actively homicidal. Marcus lowered his hands cautiously, keeping his gaze fixed firmly on the floor. The princess had wrapped herself in a shimmering robe that seemed to materialize from nowhere, covering herself completely. She stood with her arms crossed, her tendrils now moving in slow, agitated patterns that he'd learned indicated deep thought or calculation. "You are aware," she said slowly, "that walking in on a Valorian royal during a purification ritual is traditionally grounds for execution." "Yes, Your Highness." Marcus felt sweat trickling down his back despite the climate-controlled environment. "I accept full responsibility. And you are aware that by Valorian law, I would be within my rights to demand your immediate imprisonment." "Yes, Your Highness." Princess Lyra circled him like a predator studying prey, her footsteps silent on the polished floor. Marcus kept his eyes down, his posture rigid, trying to remember every scrap of diplomatic training he'd ever received. When dealing with an angry alien royal, the manual said to remain calm, accept responsibility, and under no circumstances attempt to justify your actions or make excuses. "Tell me, Captain Webb," the princess stopped in front of him, "how does a supposed professional diplomat end up in my private chambers?" "Poor navigation skills and an overconfident scanner, Your Highness," Marcus said honestly. "The embassy layout is complex, and I misread the guidance system. So you simply blundered in here by accident." "Yes, Your Highness." Another long silence. Then, unexpectedly, Princess Lyra made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a cough. "You realize that most species would attempt to lie, to claim they were invited, or that there was some grand conspiracy. Humans truly have no sense of self-preservation." Marcus risked glancing up, meeting her black and gold eyes. The anger in her expression had shifted to something else, something almost like curiosity. "In my experience, Your Highness, honesty tends to cause fewer problems than lies, usually." "Usually," she repeated, her tendrils finally relaxing from their aggressive posture. "Ambassador Talon warned me that humans were unpredictable and prone to chaos." I see he was not exaggerating. "No, Your Highness, he was probably being generous." This time the princess definitely laughed, a musical sound that seemed to resonate in the crystals around the room. She moved to a low couch and sat, gesturing for Marcus to take a seat across from her. He did so carefully, still ready to bolt if the situation turned dangerous again. "You are the first non-Valorian to see me in a state of undress," Princess Lyra said conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "In my culture, this creates what you might call a debt of honor." Marcus's stomach sank. "Your Highness, I don't want to presume to understand Valorian customs, but please know that I have absolutely no expectations or claims." "I am aware," she said dryly. "Humans broadcast their emotional states quite obviously. Your mortification is nearly tangible." She leaned back, studying him with an expression that reminded Marcus uncomfortably of his academy instructors. "The debt, however, remains. You could have reacted with aggression, with inappropriate interest, with any number of unacceptable responses. Instead, you immediately apologized and accepted responsibility for your error. That seemed like the only reasonable response, Your Highness." "Reasonable," she mused. "Yes, I suppose it was. Which is why I will not have you executed or imprisoned." Relief flooded through Marcus so intensely he felt dizzy. "Thank you, Your Highness. However," Princess Lyra continued, holding up one finger, "you now owe me a favor, to be called in at a time of my choosing. This is how we resolve such matters in Valorian culture. You have seen my vulnerability, and so you become temporarily bonded to my service until the debt is balanced." Marcus processed this, running through his cultural database. He'd read something about Valorian honor debts, though the details were fuzzy. "I accept these terms, Your Highness." "Good," she stood, moving to a small table where several data crystals rested in an ornate holder. "Then I will call in this debt now." "Now?" Marcus blinked. Princess Lyra turned, and her expression was almost playful. Ambassador Talon has been stonewalling my mining negotiations for 3 weeks, citing human concerns about environmental impact. He refuses to let me meet with your station administrator directly, claiming diplomatic protocols must be observed. She held up one of the crystals. You, as the human liaison, will arrange that meeting for me within 2 days. Marcus felt his diplomatic instincts warring with his sense of self-preservation. Your Highness, I should mention that Ambassador Talon is technically my superior officer. Yes, Princess Lyra smiled, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp to be comforting. Which is why this will balance our debt. You help me navigate human bureaucracy, and we shall consider the matter of your unfortunate intrusion resolved. Marcus thought about it for approximately 3 seconds before nodding. The mining negotiations were legitimate. The environmental concerns could be addressed through proper channels, and quite frankly, Ambassador Talon's tendency to obstruct progress had been noted in several reports Marcus had read during his assignment briefing. I'll have your meeting arranged by tomorrow morning. Your Highness, Marcus said, standing and offering a formal bow that he hoped approximated proper Valorian protocol. Princess Lyra returned the gesture, her tendrils forming a pattern that Marcus's translator helpfully identified as indicating respect between equals. I.B.